What's going on, everyone? Andrew Summers here, bringing you some usual fare, this time in the form of an 8x8 infantry fighting vehicle. Now, some background on this vehicle. This is a completely new design. I've never posted it anywhere before, well, except for my Flickr page. But yeah, I've never had a previous version of this or anything of that sort. So this is a totally new build, and I think it's actually, if I had to say so, it's probably one of my best in terms of all the features it has. So to take you around the model here, now I suppose I should probably provide a little bit more background on it. This is what I call the Tumult, Marine Personnel Carrier. If you're not familiar with the term Marine Personnel Carrier, that was a program by the United States Marine Corps to design sort of an amphibious armored personnel carrier, I guess. At least that's how I think a short synopsis of that program would read. Now, one of the biggest contenders, if not the only contender, don't quote me on this, I'm not too sure, you can look it up for yourselves, but Lockheed Martin, they do all the aircraft and stuff. They have a land vehicle division, I believe, and they came up with the Havoc. Now, the Havoc, unfortunately, as is sort of usual fare with pretty much every concept program design. It was canceled, and as far as I know, there is no such thing as a Marine personnel carrier. Nevertheless, I love the look of it, and I wanted to build something that was sort of inspired by it. Now, for starters, as per usual, this has a working steering and suspension system. So the wheels in the front here, you can position them like so, which is actually fairly easy to do. You can move them back and forth. There's also suspension on them, so I can move the wheels up and down like that. And the rear set of wheels, it's the same story. The wheels go up and down. Now, fun thing about these wheels, they're actually made up of 3 tires individually. So you have the one tire, the large tire here. If I can actually take this off for you, I will. So you have the large tire that goes around, a smaller tire. And this is the tire that you usually find in like Lego City cars. A given set will have this size tire. And then an even smaller tire in there. And then an even smaller, well, that's not a tire, but it's a cylinder. And then, okay, yeah, you can also see the steering system there. So yeah, that's how I made those wheels. And the reason I did that was sort of in part to make them large enough to scale to the vehicle. The suspension system in the back also sort of requires that construction, since the suspension system is really just a beam that connects to the body of the vehicle and then connects to the wheels. Other points of interest on this vehicle. There are quite many, I can assure you. So if we go to the front end here, there are several opening hatches. So one, you have the driver's hatch, which is right here. And then inside, you can see the driver there. He's actually seated pretty comfortably in a fairly comfortable position. Then you have an access hatch to the engine, and then a secondary access hatch to the engine. So if you look inside, you can see that it's got some bit of detailing there, some cylinders, some bars. Just basic engine details to make the thing look pretty. Then also there is another hatch right next to the turret, which we'll go over in a second here. This hatch right here is sort of the commander's hatch. So that opens up nicely. Then I can fold it down like so. And as I said, onto the turret. Turret is like a remote turret station. You got a large gun here. Let's call that a 25mm or something. That goes up and it goes down. You can move it a full 360 degrees. Right next to the turret right here, you have a machine gun, sort of like a 50 caliber machine gun right there. And if you're wondering what this little circle or cutout piece right there is, that's sort of the ejection port for the rounds. Little details. They make the thing, right? Then you got some various sensors here, and then a tow missile launcher right on the side. And then on the back, there's an active protection system unit. Now, moving all the way on to the back here. The back is where all the fun stuff takes place. Or at least the sort of the features, the feature-rich aspect of this model. For one, the doors in the back, they open like this, and then you can fit your figures in here. And if you're wondering how many figures fit into this, well, we'll get to that in a little bit. But other details on the back, you've got an aerial antenna system set up there, and then you've also got a little couple swim jets, you know, because the thing's got to be amphibious. And then details on the side, just some backpacks, some bars and whatnot to give it a nice look. Now, as I said about figures, well, lo and behold, this thing actually fits a total of 13 figures. And that breaks down to 1 driver, 2 crew, and then 10 passengers. So, how do I access those? Well, it's fairly easy access. Just take off the lid to the roof right there. Simple construction on that. And then I can move these hatches out of the way. So there are 4 top hatches, which are a little bit difficult to open, but they work. You gotta finagle with them a little bit. So let's do all 4 of them. Ah, heck, broke off. Whatever. So you can see some of the lot in here. And now one of my rules when it comes to fitting figures is that I always want to be able to have a stud of space between the legs. I probably said that in a previous video, but that's sort of my thing when it comes to Lego figures and confined spaces. And I managed to do that with this build, that stud of space between each of the figures. Now you only saw a small portion of the figures there, but I can also take off the gun emplacement. So that's just one piece roof, that goes off, and then we can look at the interior of the vehicle. Now I sort of went all out. And another note, there's actually more seats in this vehicle for minifig dismounts than I have actual figures for. So in total I have 8 troops built for my faction or whatever, all with armor, helmets and everything, but I only have 8. So in the place for the last 2 seats, I used a tame racing driver, you might know him as the Stig, and then I also have a cute anime girl, because, you know, why not? That's something you've got to have in all your Lego collections, right? Then you can see the commander and the gunner right here, and they have a fairly detailed setup. I actually went and detailed this quite a bit. So the commander, he's got a computer unit there, and then the gunner, he's got a nice set of buttons there, actually a viewfinder right in there. Then he's got other computing equipment inside, which you can't see because of the lighting situation, and then a nice screen to his left. But yeah, so you can see there, that's a total of 12 figures all in this back area. Surprisingly, this wasn't too difficult to accomplish. I guess, you know, I've been building vehicles long enough that you sort of figure out how things can work. And that's a lesson for any of you guys who are wondering, how do you build something like this? You've really just got to keep at it. You know, push the limits of what you can do, figure out what works and what doesn't. Lego is a ton of trial and error. And the more you go through that process, the more you learn stuff and the easier it becomes to make vehicles. So if we button this back up, right, just other miscellaneous details. You can see like a vent on the side there. Got some smoke launchers. And on the front, I always love this style of front. I have this on a couple other vehicles of mine. But it's basically just a hinge brake attached to slopes, right? So I can do that. And the angle it lines up perfectly and closes so that you don't have a unsightly gap or anything there. Other stuff, the mirror situation, so you got a mirror arm right here, and then an extended mirror arm right here, you know, just to make it easier for the driver to see out of. And that pretty much covers it this time. Again, I'm quite, if I can toot my own horn, I'm sort of proud of this vehicle. This is inspired by several other people who have had a similar setup where it fits like 13 figs or so, and for years now I've wanted to try and do that, and I finally, I guess, cracked the code and managed to do it. But anyway, if you enjoyed this video, feel free to leave a like, comment, and maybe subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content like this in the future. Anyhow, I'll catch you guys later. Bye.